Morning everyone. So you've now got your Voge DS800 Rally and you're wondering, how on earth do I fit this camera? I've put a chip in it, an SD card, and nothing happens. Well, the reason why nothing is happening is because you have to set this little tiny card up the right way. Firstly, let me give you some advice. You want the SD card to be showing a U with a 3 on the inside of it. And you want it to be showing the number 10. And you want it to be showing V30. There are thousands of different SD card standards, and they all end up being put onto the back of a chip. So it's quite confusing. But basically, if you find one that says 10 and U3 or V30, you've got the right card. I'll show you this one here. If I can, I'll give you a close-up in a sec. But essentially, that is the type of card that you want. Doesn't need to be hyper fast. The Voge only records in 1080p, as I understand it. So it's not, it doesn't have to be able to have a frame rate that's delivering huge amounts of data. And the other thing to consider with this little chip is this is not like your action camera, for instance, where you're going to record tons and tons and tons of film. Principally, it's here for safety. It's here in case you have an accident, for instance, and you can show footage to show it wasn't your fault. It's not really for capturing action. It's not set up for that. So the way that the Voge works is that it will start recording on the SD card, and when it gets to the end, it just goes back to the beginning and starts recording again. I have here for mine 64 gig, tons. That's way over what you actually need. A 32 gig would be absolutely fine. The second thing about these, and this is where I think a lot of the confusion comes from, and that's why I decided to do this video, maybe to help a few folks, is you have to format this card in a particular way. Now, for your average action camera and other things, music devices, for instance, that you might be using one of these, they'll probably format this card as something called XFAT. FAT stands for File Allocation Table. It's an old throwback to DOS days in the 1980s. It's the way that data is laid down onto that card. Now, XFAT is great for cameras and the like, but it won't work on the Voge. It's the wrong file allocation table. So what I'm going to take you through today is how do we take this card and reformat it correctly. Actually, Voge uses quite an old-fashioned file allocation table, and it's called FAT32. So I'm going to show everybody how to format this card in FAT32. And given that I know a lot of people are using Mac and a lot of people are using Windows, I'm going to show both ways of doing it. And I'll lay it down in the chapters. If you're a Mac person, you can watch one. And if you're a Windows person, you can use the other. Once we've got that set up, I'll then show you how to put it in the bike, and hopefully you'll all have this problem go away and you'll have some happy filming. Okay, let's get into it. So first thing that we need to do is to put our SD card inside an SD card reader. And just for the avoidance of doubt, this is a micro SD card. So it's the very small one that you can go and buy in the shops. So for the purposes of this, because I'm going to be using two different machines, I'm going to use an external card reader. But many of you may have on your laptop or computer, whatever, a built-in SD card. Either way, it doesn't matter as long as you've got a micro SD card reader slot on your PC, or you have to go and buy one of these little readers. This is a particularly high-speed one because I use it for video editing, but you don't necessarily need that for your purposes. So we're just going to insert this the correct way round, and it's a bit of it's a bit of a faff to work out which way round you're going to have it, but you just put it in like this, and in this case you just clip it in, and now we're going to put that into the computer. Okay, so what we're looking at here is my desktop on my Mac Mini, and we are going to format this micro SD card, as I said, to FAT32, and I'll show you the way to do that here. So the first thing we're going to do is go up to the right hand side, and you'll see that there's a little magnifying glass, and we're going to click on that, and that brings up the search bar. And what we're going to type in, I'd already started, as you can see, but we're going to type in, oops, disk utility, and then we're going to click on that. And what we're going to get now is a view of the entire computer and anything that is attached to it. So for instance, my big media drive is there, and the hard drive on the actual Mac itself is showing. But what we want is this generic SD card, which is has been plugged in. And if we go here to Untitled, this is the showing what all the information about this particular micro SD card. So on here it says it's used 13 megabytes, it's got available 62 gigabytes, which incidentally, just to remind you guys, is plenty for this particular job. So it's an empty drive in actual fact. So, and the same on here as well. This is just the title, and then this is what is inside it. So if we now right click on there, what we can do is hit erase. And when you hit erase, you can give it any short title, so you know what that particular little micro SD is. So in my case, I'm just going to call it Voge. And we leave the format exactly as it should be, because if you look here, we have it set as exFAT at the moment. So we're not going to do exFAT. We're going to do something called MS-DOS FAT. Now in DOS world, that is FAT32, but for Mac, this is what they call it, MS.FAT, and that is FAT32, and I'll show you that in a minute. And that has now completed. And now, if we go to here and pull up information, I'll put it down in the middle of the screen, a bit easier to look. You can now see that that drive has been renamed Voge. That's just so if I end up with a big pile of them, I know which one is which. And we can see here the file system has now become the Mac version, MS-DOS FAT, but in actual fact, it's FAT32. Now for you Mac users, that is it. It is very, very simple to do. So pull up the spotlight, you right click onto the name of the SD card. I cannot stress strongly enough be very, very careful that you end up with the correct drive. So for instance, if I did this on my Kingston drive, and as an administrator, I can do that, I would completely wipe everything, hundreds of gigabytes of information and videos, etc., etc. So be sure which one it is that you're playing with. One of the reasons why it's a good idea to name your SD cards. Anyway, so for Mac users, that's it, you're done. You can now put it in the machine, which I'll show you later on. But first, let's take a look at the Windows system, and I'll show you how to format as FAT32 in a Windows system. Okay, so we've had a look at the Mac and the method to do it with a Mac. Unfortunately, with Windows and the way that Windows makes restrictions, any drive that is over 32 gigabytes, it demands that the format is exFAT, not FAT32. And remember, you need this FAT32 to make it work on your Voge. So there's two ways of dealing with this. Either you get a 32 gig card, in which case I'll show you how to format that card, and it's very, very simple in Windows. Otherwise, we're going to have to do some other stuff and download a little executable file in order to trick the system and force it to give you a FAT32 format. So let's make an assumption that your card is 32 gigs first. So from the desktop, we're going to open the File Explorer, and here we have everything to do with our desktop and all our various drives. I've plugged in the micro SD card into a USB port on this laptop, and it's coming up as the untitled F. In order to format it, quite simple, right click, and then we're going to go to Format. Now here we can do very little. In actual fact, it just gives you information. I would suggest you want to do it as Restore Device Defaults. Now, remembering, as I explained at the top of this video, the card that I have is 64 gigabytes. So it will not give me FAT32, but let's just assume you had 32 gig drive. When you click on this file system, you can see for me, I only have two options, NTFS format or exFAT. If you put in a 32 gig micro SD card, it will come up with an extra option here, and it will say FAT32, in which case you select that and then just hit start. And it will warn you, yes, everything's going to get wiped, but this is a completely clean disk. And that's it. Your 32 gig micro SD card is now ready to be put in the Voge. However, for a lot of people, they're going to have a larger one. They're going to have a 64 or a 128. You definitely don't need any bigger than that. But in my case, I've got 64. So we're going to have to game the system and make it work for us. And to do that, you need to download a small utility called GUI format. Now, I've already pulled it up, but essentially you just type GUI format. And the very, very first thing that comes up is GUI format here. And well, the first two, in actual fact, is by a company called ridgecrop.co.uk. So you could use either of these. So we're just going to click on on this, and then we're going to say, let's download GUI format. And then we're going to hit download. And when you get to this screen, I had to scratch my head because I'm not good at reading instructions. Actually, what it says is click on this picture. That is the button for you to download. And now in my download file is something called GUIformat.exe. It's a very small executable file. You can see it's only 76 kilobytes. It's like a 1980s Moonlander game or something. Anyway, you click on this and it will say, do you want this app to make changes to your device? You're then going to say yes, and up will come this screen. It's a very, very simple screen. So with this, all you can do is, because it's a FAT32 formatter. So what this is going to do is, despite the fact that Microsoft doesn't want you to have anything but exFAT on a larger drive, this one is going to force a FAT32 format. So here again, I'm going to type in Voge as my title, just so I know which card is which. And that is it, really. You leave it on quick format. You hit start. It's going to say, do you really want to format this because all data will be lost? Yes. And that's it, finished. Now, if you look here, it is now saying that it is now a FAT32 format. And if you click on here and we go and have a look at Voge now and right click and have a look at properties, you can see, though it is it's a 64 gigabyte drive, now that file system is FAT32. So for you Windows users, slightly more complicated than with a Mac that gives you a little more freedom and will allow FAT32. With Windows, anything over 32 gig, you're not going to be able to format it correctly. Use that little GUI format and it will automatically change it to FAT32. So now we have a drive that is completely formatted correctly.
Okay,
now we just need to go and fit it on the bike. So
now we've formatted our little card. We now have to get it into the machine. What you need is a T20 Torx, and we're just going to undo this one screw. We'll just put that safe. And then there's two clips, one at the top here and one at the top there, just these two clips that are here. Now your SD card reader is tucked right up here. You're going to feel a little bit like a gynecologist, to be honest, trying to get to it. But if you feel inside, you'll feel like a rubber door, and you have to open the rubber door. Let me show you. You might be able to see. Here is the little rubber door. Okay. And what we have to do is find a way to insert this drive. Now you insert it with the gold bits downwards, and behind that rubber door you will feel a small opening for the SD card. It's very, very fiddly. Why they put it in here, God only knows. Thankfully, you've only ever got to do it once. Now you can probably just about see that I've put it into the hole. Now, I find, because it's so fiddly, I'm just going to fit a flathead screwdriver onto my little stubby, and then I'm going to use that to push that into position, and it has to click into position, which this hasn't done. Let me have another go. Okay, so that's done. And then the last thing that you need to do, because this is very exposed, this bit of kit, is make sure you've got that rubber door pushed all the way in. Then we just need to reseat these back on the into their clips. Take our Torx T20, screw that in, and we should be done. So now we turn our Rally on. You're now seeing down here, that is now just recording automatically every time that you turn the ignition on. So that's it. That's how you format the SD card correctly. And as you can see, that's now working perfectly on the machine. And I hope that helps a lot of other people to understand just what's involved so that you get a successful installation yourself. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon.